Welcome back to my channel and a new true crime video. Today I am covering the tragic case of a Thai woman working as a carer, who brutally beat an elderly man to death with a hammer, after he changed his will to leave her over £340,000. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel as I upload new true crime content twice per week, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Now on to the case. This case took place in 2011 in a small market town called Haverhill, which is located in Suffolk in England. The killer in this case is Bunthawee Rimmer, also known as Pacer, who was originally from Thailand. She had lived quite a sad life because she was orphaned at the age of 7 when both of her parents were killed in a car crash, and she had been raised by the remaining members of her family who were quite poor. She didn't attend school for very long and left without gaining any qualifications, and did not learn any particular trade or profession. Bunthawee had tried to contribute financially to the family by making and selling various items of food, and other types of crafts that she had made. She primarily targeted the tourists because they often had lots of money to spend, and they were open to trying authentic Thai foods. Bunthawee had been married in the past, but was now divorced, and she had one son from one of those marriages. The victim, Paul Norfolk, came from a family of 4, and he had an older brother who was quite protective of him. After he left school at the age of 18, he joined the British Army, where he served in the tank regiment for 3 years. He met his wife Esme not long after leaving service. They fell in love quite quickly and then got married. After he left the army, Paul began working as a foreman at a perfume manufacturer known as International Flowers and Fragrances based in Haverhill. They manufactured perfumes for companies all across the world, including high-end labels, and the beautiful scent can be smelt all around the town of Haverhill. It was whilst working here that he met Jeffrey Rimmer, and the pair became very close friends, and had both worked there for 30 years before their retirement. Following the death of Jeffrey's first wife in the early 1990s, Paul decided to cheer Jeffrey up by taking him traveling around the world. They had been to many Eastern countries including Burma and Vietnam, but they had both fallen in love with Thailand and had chosen to return there several times. It was during one of their many trips to Thailand that Jeffrey met Bunthawee, who was selling donuts on a beach on this particular day. She was 30 years younger than Jeffrey, and he had invited her out several times for food and drinks, and they became quite close. This quickly developed into a romantic relationship, and Jeffrey fell in love with her. Shortly after, she returned with him to the UK, where they married in 1998, leaving her son and family in Thailand. Jeffrey loved Bunthawee so much and knew how poor her family was, that he paid to build a new house for them in Thailand, to make their lives a bit more comfortable. Jeffrey treated Bunthawee like a princess, and they lived a very enjoyable and comfortable lifestyle. Both Paul and Jeffrey had settled on the same road, Castle Lane, living just a few doors apart from each other. Their friendship was still going strong, and they spent a lot of time together, but this would come to an abrupt and tragic end. On the 19th of September 2010, Jeffrey died suddenly of natural causes. Bunthawee became a widow, and Paul had lost his best friend. Bunthawee had inherited his pension, which did not amount to very much, with the remainder of his estate and house to be left to his 2 daughters from a previous marriage. Bunthawee felt that she had received a very poor deal and was hoping to receive much more money than she did. His daughters were not that keen on Bunthawee at all, and they were not happy to discover she had received his money. As the house now belonged to them and Bunthawee had no claim over it, they wanted her to move out of the marital home, so they could either sell it or move in themselves. Jeffrey's funeral took place at the West End Congregational Church, not long after he died, and this is where Bunthawee reportedly said to Jeffrey's daughters that she had 3 other men that are interested in her, and that one of them lived on the same street, meaning Paul. This disrespectful comment only added fuel to the fire, and they wanted her to move out immediately. Paul was described by everyone that knew him as a friendly, caring and a very generous man, and was well liked within the community. Paul lived with his wife Esme in a semi-detached house in Castle Lane, where they had been for over 40 years. They were married but did not have any children of their own. However, they were very good with children, and everyone called them auntie and uncle as a mark of respect and affection. They had a traditional sort of marriage where Paul would be the one to go out to work and earn the money, and Esme would stay at home to tend to the house and cook for Paul when he returned from work. They were very much in love and were inseparable. In later years, Esme had suffered a stroke, which meant that she needed more and more support from Paul to do daily tasks and live her life. She had also suffered from early onset dementia, and because Paul was now elderly himself, it became impossible for him to manage on his own. Esme had taken care of Paul for 45 years, and now their roles had reversed, and he didn't know what to do and had to quickly learn how to care for the both of them. Because of the dementia, Esme frequently forgot who Paul was, which is quite tragic after being married and in love for so many years, for your partner to not even recognize you anymore. Because Bunthawee needed to find somewhere to live and Paul needed the help, it seemed to be the perfect solution that she moved into their home to help care for Esme. Paul also felt protective of her because he was the wife of his best friend and he wanted to do the right thing. However, as the dementia continued to get worse, Esme needed 24-hour care, which was way too much for Paul and Bunthawee to cope with on their own. The reluctant decision was made that Esme should move into a care home, where she could get the level of care that she needed. This left Paul and Bunthawee living together at the marital home, and she claims that they quickly developed a sexual relationship, although this has never been confirmed by anyone that knew him. Having spent a lot of time with both Paul and Esme, Bunthawee knew that they both had quite a lot of money in the bank, and had somehow found both of their wills. She discovered that whoever died first would leave everything to the other, and because Esme was now out of the picture, and she hadn't received much from Jeffrey, she saw this as an opportunity to gain financially from the situation. At the beginning of 2011, Bunthawee had persuaded Paul to change his will, and initially he had chosen to leave just the house to her instead of Esme, and Esme would receive the rest of his money. Not happy with this, Bunthawee continued to work on Paul, and later that year in October 2011, just a few weeks before his murder, she had persuaded him to change his will for the second time. When he went to the solicitor, she raised concerns that she thought Paul did not have the mental capacity to make such a huge decision, but after hearing that Esme's condition will continue to deteriorate, and a lengthy discussion with Paul, she did as he asked. Paul had now left everything to Bunthawee, and this amounted to £340,000, and Esme would be left with nothing at all. Hours before Paul was murdered, he had been to his bank in Haverhill, and had transferred a substantial amount of money from his bank account into an account in Thailand, but I wasn't able to find out exactly how much this was. Paul and Bunthawee had reportedly shared a bed ever since Esme went into the care home, and Paul, who was now 77, began to need help with caring for himself, and this fell on Bunthawee. On the 29th of December in the early hours of the morning, Paul had woken up and needed to go to the toilet. Having disturbed Bunthawee, she got up to help him. When Paul had finished, they went downstairs to the kitchen where Bunthawee made him both a cup of tea, and then helped Paul back to bed. Bunthawee went back downstairs to the kitchen where she picked up a large and very heavy claw hammer, 3 kitchen knives and a butcher's knife. She locked Paul's dog in a downstairs room and had locked all of the other internal doors of the property before going back upstairs. When she returned to the bedroom, Paul had already dropped back off to sleep. Bunthawee launched a brutal attack on him with the hammer, repeatedly striking him on the skull, which splattered blood all up the walls and ceiling of his bedroom. But Paul didn't die immediately from his injuries. He had been alive but unconscious for around several hours after the attack, and Bunthawee did nothing to save his life. It was clear from her actions that Bunthawee had intended to kill him. After she had attacked Paul, Bunthawee then tried to set the scene so that she could tell the police she was acting in self-defense, and that she had attempted suicide as a result. She did this by drinking a full bottle of toilet cleaner, stabbed herself in the chest repeatedly, and even tried to slit her own throat, although none of the cuts were so severe that they would have resulted in her death. She then swallowed an unknown quantity of antidepressant tablets and then laid on the bed next to Paul's body. Was this a genuine suicide attempt? Paul's brother became concerned because he had arranged to meet him at a pub in Cambridge for a meal, but he did not arrive. Paul had always been reliable and punctual, and was not the sort of person that would let someone down at the last minute without having a good reason, or without contacting them. He tried to phone Paul several times but there was no answer, and became so worried that he contacted Paul's neighbors to find out if Paul was okay. The street where Paul lived had a strong community spirit where everyone looked out for each other and always had lengthy conversations, and would notice if something wasn't quite right. They said that they hadn't heard or seen Paul or Bunthawee, and they were concerned because none of the curtains had not been opened. They went to the house and knocked the door but they did not get any reply. Shortly after, Paul's brother arrived and tried the spare key but the key was in the lock on the inside and couldn't be opened. He started to panic and decided to call the police. The police attended the house on the 30th of December 2011 at 10:05 p.m., and when there was no answer they forced entry into the property. They started searching around to locate the occupants, and when they went upstairs to the bedroom, they found Bunthawee and Paul laying on the bed together holding hands. Paul was led in a large pool of blood in the bed, and Bunthawee was wrapped up in the duvet with her head on the pillow. Both were saturated with blood. Bunthawee was unconscious but breathing, and by this time Paul was dead. Police found the 3 kitchen knives and a butcher's knife on the floor of the bedroom, along with a hammer which were all covered in blood. Whether this was genuine or staged, either way, her suicide attempt had been unsuccessful. Bunthawee was taken to Addenbrooke's Hospital where her injuries were taken care of, and she was kept in overnight to recover from the effects of the overdose. Before she was discharged from the hospital she had spoken to a psychiatrist, and claimed to have been suffering from depression and other mental disturbances, which she blamed on having to care for Esme before she went into the care home, and then for Paul. She also said that Paul had been violent to her, and when he was angry he would grab her by the shoulders. She said her mind was blank and she could not remember exactly what had happened that night. Because it was their duty, and there was a suspected murder, the staff had to tell the police exactly what Bunthawee told them. She was discharged from hospital on the 31st of December after doctors declared her fit, and she was immediately arrested by police on suspicion of murder, and taken into custody at Bury St Edmunds police station. Forensics attended the house to begin their investigation, and Paul's body was taken for a post-mortem. This revealed that he had been struck on the head 12 times and the pattern was consistent with the hammer they found at the scene. The fact that there was blood on the ceiling indicated that the hammer had been used with substantial force. The pathologist also confirmed that Paul was alive for around 15 hours after the attack, and he may have survived if Bunthawee had called for an ambulance. Bunthawee could not read or write any English, and so the police needed to arrange for a Thai interpreter to attend so that she could be interviewed. When she was interviewed, Bunthawee remained silent and refused to answer any of their questions. She was seen by a psychiatric nurse whilst in custody, and she told the nurse that Paul was abusive to her and that he had been forcing her to work as a masseur for other men, and that he was pocketing the money from it. This was obviously a lie because Paul had a large amount of savings and would not have needed to receive money in this way. She claimed that she was in a romantic relationship with Paul, and that he had started abusing her and became violent towards her. She told him that he had attacked her first and had caused the injuries on her body, but later admitted that the injuries were all self-inflicted. She was interviewed several times to try and establish exactly what had happened that night. In a separate interview she said that she vaguely remembered picking up a piece of wood and moving it up and down, and when police asked her if this could have been the hammer, she replied, yes. She later said that she heard voices shouting, "Dead, dead, dead," before the attack, and that she had taken the antidepressants because she wanted to die. The reason she gave for this was that Paul had told her he was dumping her because he had fallen in love with another woman, he no longer wanted to be with her and was going to kick her out. However, Paul's friends and family were spoken to and they all said that Paul had told them on many occasions that he could not live without her. When she was questioned about Paul changing his will, she claimed that she did not know exactly how much it was worth, and wasn't sure of the amount of money Paul had transferred to the Thai bank account earlier that day. Police requested permission from the magistrates to detain Bunthawee for a further 36 hours. Whilst they continued their investigation, and to question Bunthawee further. She eventually admitted that she killed Paul but denied murder, claiming that because of the mental disturbances it wasn't her fault. However, the police did not believe her and she was charged with murder on the 3rd of January 2012, and was taken to Bury St Edmunds Magistrates Court for a bail hearing. This was refused and she was remanded in custody. Her case was transferred to the Crown Court. She then attended court for a plea hearing on the 16th of March 2012, where she pleaded not guilty to murder, but guilty of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility, and the case was sent to trial. Weeks before the trial was due to start, a friend of Bunthawee had visited her in prison, and Bunthawee told her that she had tried to kill herself because she had done a bad thing, meaning that she had intended to kill Paul. So it would appear that the suicide attempt, whether genuine or staged, was an afterthought following the murder. It had not been planned in advance, and it was not as a result of Paul telling her he had met someone else. She was very concerned about this and her friend disclosed this conversation to the police, and she was asked to stand as a witness for the prosecution at the trial. Bunthawee was assessed by a psychiatrist and it was established that although she was suffering with depression, this would not have impaired her judgment, and they were unable to find any other underlying mental issues. The trial took place at Ipswich Crown Court on the 2nd of July 2012. Bunthawee gave evidence to the court in which she said that she loved Paul very much, and that she had no reason at all to kill him. She was asked about the alleged sexual relationship, and she still claimed that it happened but said she did not want to have sex with Paul. She said she only did it to make him happy. The trial lasted for 2 weeks, and it took the jury 7.5 hours to return a unanimous verdict of guilty of murder. Before sentencing her, the judge said, "No one should lose their life in the way that Paul Norfolk did. It was a wicked thing to do, and I am satisfied the defendant recognized this and led to her trying to kill herself." Bunthawee was sentenced to life, and must serve a minimum of 11 years before being eligible for parole. After sentencing, Paul's sister read a statement which said, "His brother and I, both in our 80s, are completely devastated by the wickedly cruel way in which our gentle, loving and much-loved brother was taken from us. It was a blow from which we shall never recover. Our remaining years will be spent grieving for him, who brought joy and happiness into our lives and whom we shall always remember as our dearest Paul. With all our love, Peter and Pansy. I guess nobody will ever know if she had killed Paul for his money, but it is very suspicious that the attack happened not long after he had transferred money into her Thai bank account." What do you think about this case? If you would like to join in the discussion, please leave your comments down below, but remember to keep it respectful for the victim's family. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you like true crime stories, please subscribe to my channel, as I upload new content twice per week. Also, don't forget to turn on the notification bell to be notified when I upload. Before you go, why not check out some of my other true crime videos? I have also created several playlists, which make videos easier for you to find, by the subjects that you are interested in. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know.